Once you have this link open, you're going to click Start in order to put a grid on your picture. And then I'm going to keep everything the same. So orientation set to portrait, canvas size 8 by 10. And then next, you're going to choose your photo. So I'm going to go onto here, and it's the picture that's already posturized, so has the highlights, medium tones, and shadows in it. I'm going to hit open and then upload. And next step, so everything can just stay the same here unless your picture is sideways, then you're going to want to rotate it so that it's vertical. And then next step, this is where you're going to crop it. So if for some reason your picture is maybe cut off, you'll want to adjust that. I'm going to just start in the upper left-hand corner and drag this all the way across. So I'm just pulling it all the way towards the right. These little dotted lines are going to go all the way to the edge of the picture. And then when I scroll down, just that little bottom part is going to get cut off because most likely your picture will be 8.5 by 11, but this scale is to 8 by 10. If you do need to slide this either up or down, you can once you have it adjusted, and you can slide the sides out more too. But once you have it cropped, you're going to hit next. And then for the line spacing, I'm going to leave it 1 inch apart. Line thickness 1 inch. And then this is the only thing I'm going to change, the line color, because I do want that line to stand out against the black and white picture. So choose a color that's going to stand out and then hit choose. Doesn't really matter what color you choose. And then I'm going to hit download, and it's going to save my picture with a grid on it. So once this loads, I'll show you what it looks like. But the last step is putting now the same grid on your final picture for your painting. So that way we can transfer everything little square by little square in the grid to your paper by looking at the reference picture. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this and then grab a piece of paper. Make sure that your piece of paper for your final image is also 8 by 10. So you're going to need a ruler and a pencil for this next step. So the next step is putting a grid on your drawing so that you're able to transfer your picture. Make sure that you measure and cut an 8 by 10 piece of paper. So you are going to need a ruler for this. Going across widthwise, again, 8 inches by 10 inches, and then we're going to do 1 inch by 1 inch box or grid on this piece of paper. Now I don't have a ruler with me right now, so we can pretend that this cardboard here is a ruler, but again, you do need a ruler. I'm going to start out and line up that ruler at the start of the paper, and every inch I'm going to put a little mark going all the way across. So again, when you're done, you should have 8 inches going across here. So here, and again, I'm using a Sharpie so that you can see this better. However, you do need to use a pencil and draw this as light as possible so that your grid doesn't take over your portrait too much. So I'm going to start with 1 inch, put a little mark there, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 will be at the end there, so you don't need to necessarily make an 8 because the edge of the paper is the 8. Now I'm going to flip my paper the opposite way. So I'm on the bottom, and this is a very important step so that your lines do not get too weird, going at different angles or out of proportion. So very important that you do measure correctly and as accurate as possible on both sides. So here again, same thing, 1 inch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 is the edge of the paper. So now I'm going to flip my page and I'm going to do widthwise and make my marks. So this should be 11 inches. So I'm going to start with 1, 2 inches, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, and I'm sorry, not 11 inches, but 10 inches. So 8 by 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 should be the edge of the paper. Now I'm going to flip it again and do 8 by 10 or 10 inches. So again, measure as accurately as possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 is the edge of the paper. Now that's this last step is connecting all of the dots, and it's very important to be using your pencil very lightly and making sure that these lines are straight. So with the ruler, I'm going to line up the first mark at the top, and then I'm going to line up the second mark at the bottom and very lightly draw my line. Again, I'm using Sharpie so you can see this, but you should be using pencil as light as possible. And then I'm going to line up that first dot with the bottom dot and draw my line. So you're going to go all the way across, and it's very important that your lines and measurements are correct. So if any line looks like it kind of slants a little bit too much to the side, you're going to need to double check your measurements, because you don't want to get towards the end of working on your portrait and realize that your portrait's out of proportion because you measured and made the lines incorrectly. So make sure that everything is accurate. When you're finished going across widthwise, you can switch and go up and down. So again, I'm just lining up the two dots, and I'm drawing my line from the top to the bottom. Then lining up the two dots and drawing my line. So when you're finished, you're going to get a nice grid on here that lines up with your picture. And from there, you're going to go grid by grid, drawing what's on the computer into your photo or onto your picture. So I would start and look at the first box here, and then on my computer, I'm looking at this same box, and I'm drawing exactly what I see in it. So I'm going to outline any highlight, any medium tone, and any shadow that I see in that first square. Then I'm going to move on to my second square, look at the picture on the computer, and draw everything that I see in that square. So instead of drawing the entire picture at once, it's breaking it up square by square so that you can take your time and focus on just one small area, and then that will keep everything in proportion for your portrait. If you have questions or if you are stuck on this step, please click on the link to ask me. I know that this step is something that can be kind of confusing, and it's very important to make sure that you know what you're doing and that this is as accurate as possible, because you don't want to waste all this time putting together your portrait and then realizing that something was off or you were doing it incorrectly. So double check if it feels weird to you or off, or you're not sure if you're doing this step correctly.